Trent Cotney and John Kenney are dedicated to helping the construction industry with legal business and safety challenges. Welcome to this week's episode of Law and Mortar.
Hey, I'd like to welcome everybody to another episode of Law and Mortar. I'm Trent Cotney, and as always, I got John Kenney here with me. John, how you doing?
Doing great. I gotta say, as always, there's no better place to be. I love being here.
Yeah, Law and Mortar. What is this? Is this 93, I think?
92.
Oh yeah, we
We're
are
creeping there.
rapidly coming to 100. It's coming. So, um, a lot of big news out there. Obviously, you can't help but turn on the news and see, crazy stuff going on with politics, but, and some of that, spills over a little bit into the legal world. And recently, it was interesting that there's been a big push by the Biden administration on misclassification. We've talked about that. We've talked about how it influences roofing contractors and other contractors out there with both subcontractors and your 1099 salespeople, and how if you mischaracterize them, you could potentially owe a lot of money, from an IRS standpoint, or you could be, subject to a Department of Labor investigation, all that kind of stuff. Well, you and I have both been preaching this for months and months that this is sort of it's always been around, but this administration has really been pushing it hard. Well, recently, the Attorney General in DC had a $3.75 million settlement with a couple of contractors and some labor brokers for misclassifying their workers. And it included everything from, overtime payments to not paying benefits. But this just shows, John, this is real world. I mean, this is not just us talking about it and, talking about the new test and everything else. This has teeth. And, especially if you are in place like, California or Illinois or DC or, a jurisdiction like that, you're going to have more aggressive, administrations that are out there actively looking for this stuff. So, when you heard about that, John, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's nothing surprised me about it, and it's like you say, there's not a whole lot of major new changes, but the point is, it's now in the enforcement stage, and when I'm out there working with different contractors, especially lately, been doing quite a bit of new, seeing between 50 and a new 100 contractors a month with the estimating trainings. We go through a little bit of this in the estimating because it's important. One, burden labor rate, have it right. There's overtime. There's a lot of things that come along with it. And honestly, we got to do the right thing. It doesn't take a law or an enforcement to keep us doing things right. And that's what we're finding out. The contractors are elevating themselves. And if you're elevating yourself and you know how to do it right, and it's not that a lot of people are deliberately not doing it right. That's what I want to clear about. What I'm finding from these is, oh, I didn't know. I didn't realize that. I wasn't sure how that worked. Well, once you get it right, you find out when we start going through these trainings that doing it right isn't what's keeping you from getting jobs if you're not getting jobs. There's a lot of other things to it, your overhead and everything else. So again, I've always been a preacher of this one thing. We don't need OSHA to be safe in this industry. We should be safe ourselves. Same way here. I really don't think we need to worry about Big Brother if we're doing the right thing. And I think it's very plausible. Now, to jump to the other side, I still think there's some confusion big time on the sales and the classifications. That could be better, how do we put it, put into place with more education. And I'm not, and I know you're doing this because we've been, you're talking about it now and that, but the game changes a lot, right? That's the biggest problem. The game changes, and that's where you're trying to get that information out there. Trent, I lost you. You're muted. You're muted.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Yep. You got me now?
Yep.
Yep. So what I was saying is that it's been a bouncing ball lately where you can't really figure out what the rules or regulations are. And part of that is, issues with this administration and all the different changes that have come up. The looking into the future, I still think there's going to be a lot of rule changes and things of that nature, but it's almost like contractors have to be closet lawyers just to navigate all the all the concerns that are out there. So, John, you said something that was interesting that kind of leads me to my next topic, which is, your estimating training. You've really been hitting the road hard here. I watch your travels. I see all the different places that you go, and you've got packed audiences, packed crowds. You've become like the guru when it comes to estimating nationwide. I'm curious, in your classes, what information, have you found real interesting talking to the contractors? That's what I like, going on the road is it's hard for me to understand sitting at a desk. I can only get so much information. I got to kind of be out there pounding the pavement. What have you kind of gathered from your lessons that you think are worth mentioning?
Well, I think the biggest key is to compare this. I have online training, which is really good training, but it's like anything else. It's very, I don't want to use the word rigid because that's not what I'm looking for, but it's course related and you've got to learn it. You got to take the test. The difference between that and going out live is I'm giving you the very similar material over the 2 days and 3 days, depending on the group. But the key is you get the chance to hear me put it into real life examples. That's the advantage of being in the industry. The only advantage besides getting old is 45 plus years of doing it. I want to relate to them how this relates in the real world. And that's where I see the light bulbs going off. Okay. I can pound as much information as possible into anybody at any time. But if you can't take stuff away from it that you can go back and start using immediately, then I don't consider that a success. That's the success of these. I get people following up after, months and even weeks and months and even multiple months afterwards saying, hey, I, I took what you taught us and I put it in and this is what's happening. And I love to hear that feedback. And that's a key. I look at it without, however you want to look at it. What I want to do is a problem with most trainings is they're learning, to put it in simple terms, they're feeding people, right? They're catching the fish for them and here, do this, you'll be all right. I take this and I really want to teach them how to fish, how to estimate, how to build their business. So when they leave there, they have the skills to be out on their own. That's the biggest takeaway that I think I get from it. That's a lot of internal joy for me too. Muted again. You're back.
Yeah, I'm in some kind of technical difficulty here. Maybe Big Brother's watching right now, John. They're muting
Well, at
me.
least our audience knows we're not imperfect. There's no AI here. This is live being recorded.
Yeah, that's what happens. You do it live, only one take. That's how good we are, So you get all the bloopers in there with it. So I was just telling you that I haven't sat through some of your classes. I can tell you that you're offering this is not fluff. This is understanding how to estimate. And many of the contractors out there, they've got this singular focus on top line sales, but they don't understand how to really bid a project. They're just ballparking it and hoping it works. And that'll get you by so far, but at some point you've got to understand the math behind a bid, the math behind a proposal, right? And that's what you're teaching. You're teaching them to help understand how to construct a successful business, and it's fundamentals. It doesn't matter whether you are an estimator or you're an owner. I've always believed if you're an owner, you need to know every aspect of your business, right?
Yep.
So definitely, sage advice, and recommend anybody out there go listen to one of these courses because I learned a lot from it, and I don't know anything. Just being able to sit there and hear what you were saying helped me understand better. So I want to turn now, John, while I still have audio, to our question of the day.
Love it.
I picked this one out. We're backed up a little bit, but this one I thought was interesting. So this one is from Roger, and if I'm summarizing his question, he wants to know if there's like an SOP or best strategy for dealing with change orders. Changes on projects, especially commercial projects, always an issue. It can always be a potential problem. I always joke around I wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for unexecuted change orders. But I guess I'll take it from the legal side. Legally, follow your contract. You want to make sure that you're doing your best to follow your contract. Best practice, get change orders executed in advance. We all know that can happen. So I like sending out that negative notice. And that negative notice is I'm coming out. I'm going to mobilize on your job on this date. My understanding is you want me to do this extra work, then I'm going to get paid for this extra work. If any of the above is incorrect, notify me before, I get out there the day before. That way, at least you're paper in the file and you're putting them on notice, right? But clearly, best practice, cross your T's, dot your I's. John, what about common sense standpoint? How best to prosecute change orders and get them signed?
I mean, you brought it up, okay? The biggest problem that I see is one, you're not following your contract. You don't have a procedure in place, and people get lost in this. Procedure should be simple. The procedure is I am not getting the information that I'm contractually bound to follow out to the people who need to follow it. That's the biggest problem. Then when it comes back in from the field, it gets lost in internal land because there's no procedure in place of who gets next and who does what. It's kind of like the old who's on first, what's on second, or what, that old adage. Just be clear about it. Read your contract, get the contract information to your field executes accordingly. It comes back in, the procedure follows it right on through till, what have we said many times in here? Until the money's in the bank, the procedure's not closed. That's the way to look at it, start to finish. That's the best advice I can give on that. Mute it again.
You got me?
Got you back.
Okay. Really, start at the beginning, work on your scope. If you can focus on your scope ahead of time and really talk about not only what you're going to do, but what you're not going to do, you may be in a position where it becomes more obvious what is an extra and what is not. So with that, I'd like to thank all of our loyal listeners. Really appreciate everyone coming on and tuning in every other week or so. As always, if you need to get hold of me, you can email me, trent.cotney@arlaw.com, or hit me up on social at Trent Cotney. John, how can they get you?
Kenney at cotneyconsulting.com, or of course on social media, and always look forward to hearing from you.
Great. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in, and stay tuned for a couple weeks for another episode of Law and Mortar. Thank you.
Take care, buddy.